There were some barking dogs and opening prison gates and groups of men coming to. I have a Since it was one camera in some production, I have a suspicion that this guy just got cold feet.
What if I told you that the beloved TV show Hogan's Heroes was hiding some of the most shocking secrets in television history? Secrets so incredible that when fans finally learned the truth, they were left completely speechless. From the heartbreaking real-life stories of the actors to the surprising origins of the show itself, you're about to discover things about Hogan's Heroes that will change how you see this classic comedy forever. Get ready to be amazed, because what we're about to reveal will blow your mind. These aren't just fun facts or behind-the-scenes trivia. These are life-changing secrets that have been hidden for decades, and today, we're finally bringing them to light. Let's start with something that will make your jaw drop. Did you know that Hogan's Heroes almost never happened the way we know it? The show we all love and remember was supposed to be completely different. The creators originally wanted to make a comedy about prisoners in an American jail, not a German prison camp during World War II. Can you imagine how different television history would have been? But here's where it gets interesting. The creators, Bernard Fine and Albert Ruddy, heard that another network was already making a show about an Italian prison camp during the war. They panicked because their idea might seem too similar. So what do? They completely changed their entire concept in just one single day. That's right. In 24 hours, they transformed their American jail comedy into the World War II prison camp show that would become legendary. Robert Butler, who directed the show, later remembered how crazy that time was. He said his agent just happened to be in the right place at the right time, and before he knew it, he was directing what would become one of the most famous TV shows ever made. He described it as an enormous amount of fun, but I bet he had no idea just how big the show would become. The original pilot episode looked nothing like the show fans would fall in love with. It was filmed in black and white, and everything was different. The camp wasn't even called Stalag 13 yet. They called it Camp 13. General Burkhalter appeared in the pilot, but he was just a colonel, not a general. Carter was supposed to be a lieutenant, and the creators didn't even plan to bring him back after the pilot episode. Can you believe that? Carter became one of the most beloved characters, and they almost wrote him out completely. There was also a Russian character played by an actor named Leonid Kinsky, but he decided not to continue with the show. Why? Because he felt uncomfortable making jokes about Nazis. He wasn't the only one who had concerns. Albert Ruddy, one of the people who created the show, also stepped away after the pilot because he didn't want to be locked into a long television contract. Now here's something that might surprise you. The camp in the show, Stalag 13, was completely made up, but it was based on real places. During World War II, Germany really did have prison camps called stalags, which was short for a German word meaning main camp. These camps held captured soldiers from other countries. While there was never a real Stalag 13 like in the show, the writers used the idea of these real camps to create their fictional version. This gave them the freedom to mix serious wartime themes with comedy in a way that had never been done before. But the legal troubles were just beginning. Before Hogan's Heroes ever aired on television, two playwrights named Donald Bevan and Edmund Dzerzhinsky had written a story called Stalag 17 about life in a World War II prison camp. This story became a movie in 1953. When Hogan's Heroes came out, these writers were not happy at all. They thought the show had copied their work, so they decided to sue Bing Crosby, who was producing the show. The case went to court, and something incredible happened. The jury actually agreed with the playwrights and said that Hogan's Heroes had copied Stalag 17. But then the judge did something unexpected. He overruled the jury's decision. His reason was simple but powerful. He said that even though both stories were about prison camps, the tone was completely different. Stalag 17 was serious and dramatic, while Hogan's Heroes was silly and funny. The judge decided that because of this difference, there was no copying involved. The legal problems didn't end there, though. In 2012, the rights to the show got all tangled up again. Even though the original creators had given the movie and TV rights to Bing Crosby Productions, later legal decisions gave one of the creators separate movie rights through Mark Cuban's company. There was even talk about making a Hogan's Heroes movie in 2014, but it never happened. Now let's talk about something that will absolutely shock you. The casting of this show had a hidden meaning that most people never realized. Several of the actors who played Nazi officers were actually Jewish in real life. This wasn't just a coincidence. It was intentional, and the reasons behind it will give you chills. Werner Klemperer, who played the bumbling Colonel Klink, was born into a respected Jewish family in Cologne, Germany. His family had to flee from the real Nazis in the 1930s and eventually made it safely to America. Knowing his background makes his performance as a clueless Nazi colonel incredibly powerful and personal. But here's the amazing part. Klemperer would only agree to play the role if the show promised never to show the Nazis in a positive light. The show kept this promise throughout its entire run. Even more heartbreaking is the story of Robert Clary, who played the clever Corporal Louis LeBeau. Clary wasn't just acting when he portrayed a prisoner of war. He had actually lived through the nightmare of being a real prisoner. Born in France, Clary was a Holocaust survivor who had been imprisoned in the Buchenwald concentration camp during World War II. The serial number tattooed on his arm was a permanent reminder of the horrors he had survived. Think about that for a moment. Here was a man who had experienced one of the darkest chapters in human history, and he chose to be part of a comedy show set during that same time period. The courage it must have taken to do that is almost impossible to imagine. While most viewers saw his performance as just entertainment, Clary was bringing real-life experience and pain to his role. His presence added a depth and weight to the show that most people never realized was there. Liana Skin, who played General Burkhalter, also had a heartbreaking real-life connection to the show's setting. The menacing facial scar that his character had wasn't makeup or special effects. It was real. Skin had received that scar as a child when he was beaten by Nazi SS officers for being Jewish. The emotional scars from that trauma went much deeper than what anyone could see on his face. It gets even more incredible when you learn that all 4 actors who played Nazi officers on the show were Jewish. Werner Klemperer, Liana Skin, John Banner, and Howard Kane had all served in World War II, and except for Kane, each one had fled from Nazi persecution in real life. Harold Gould, another actor on the show, was also Jewish and a World War II veteran. Here's something that will amaze you. It was actually John Banner's idea to cast Jewish actors as the Nazis. When the producers asked him why he thought this was a good idea, his response was both simple and profound. He said, "Well, who better play Nazis than us Jews?" There's so much wisdom and strength in those words. These men were taking back power from the people who had tried to destroy them by turning them into objects of ridicule and laughter. Werner Klemperer originally auditioned to play Sergeant Schultz, while John Banner was being considered for Colonel Klink. But the roles were switched around, and it turned out to be perfect casting. Klemperer once said, "I'm an actor. If I can play Richard II, I can play a Nazi." But he was very clear that he would only take the role if the show mocked the enemy instead of glorifying them. Some of the other actors on the show also brought real military experience to their roles. Bob Crane, who played Colonel Hogan, and Richard Dawson, who played Peter Newkirk, had both served in the armed forces before becoming actors. This first-hand experience likely helped them portray military life more authentically, even in a comedy setting. Speaking of authenticity, let's talk about some of the quirky details that made the show special. Colonel Klink was almost never seen without his monocle and a cigar, but here's something funny that you might not have noticed. You never actually see him light that cigar or smoke it. It's always there, just sitting unlit in his hand or mouth. Over time, this became a running joke and a quirky part of his character. Some fans think it's symbolic, maybe representing Klink's constant distractions or his inability to finish anything he starts. Now, if you've ever watched the show closely, you might have noticed some things that seem out of place. Equipment and props that clearly came from the 1950s or 1960s appear in a show that's supposed to be set in the 1940s. At first glance, these look like mistakes, but here's the twist that will surprise you. Many of those so-called errors were done on purpose. The creators deliberately added these anachronisms to keep the tone light and humorous, rather than trying to be perfectly historically accurate. They wanted to remind viewers that the show wasn't meant to be taken too seriously. It was first and foremost a comedy that happened to be set during World War II, not a documentary about the war itself. These playful choices helped create the show's unique style and personality. For example, Colonel Klink's hat doesn't quite match the World War II era. It's more like the style worn by German officers in World War I. Was this a costume department mistake? Probably not. It was more likely a clever creative choice that made Klink look slightly outdated and out of step, just like his clueless personality. Mixing different time periods like this was a smart way for the show to add visual humor and reinforce character traits without having to say a word. The show had plenty of other fun inconsistencies, too. In one episode, General Burkhalter hands Colonel Klink a document marked Top Secret in English. That would have been a huge red flag in a real German military camp, but it was perfect for the show's comedic tone. Colonel Hogan came up with silly code names for his team like Papa Bear, Goldilocks, and Little Red Riding Hood. But one nickname was never really explained. Why did Klink and Schultz always call LeBeau Cockroach? Some people think it was a joke about his height. Others believe it had to do with language. In German, the words for cockroach all tie back to kitchens, and since LeBeau was the camp's cook, it might have been an inside joke that only German speakers would understand. Here's a fun piece of Hollywood history. Carter's jacket on the show had quite a journey through different movies. That same jacket was worn by Frank Sinatra in the 1965 film Vaughn Ryan's Express, and decades later by Greg Kinnear in the 2002 movie Autofocus. It's a surprising piece of costume continuity that spans different decades and genres. The show's creators loved sneaking in little cultural and historical references for observant fans. In a few episodes, there's a wooden signpost showing distances to various cities. One of the cities listed is Hamelin, which isn't just a random choice. It's almost certainly a reference to the old legend of the Pied Piper of Hamelin. Little touches like this gave the show extra charm and depth, rewarding fans who were paying close attention. And who could forget Sergeant Schultz's most famous line, "I know nothing, nothing." It became one of the most iconic catchphrases in television history. But here's something that will amaze you. It wasn't originally in the script. Actor John Banner came up with it during filming, and it fit his character so perfectly that they kept it. Schultz was the kind of guard who preferred to stay out of trouble by pretending not to notice what the prisoners were up to, and this line captured that perfectly. Most fans know the main character simply as Colonel Hogan, but his full name was actually Robert Edward Hogan. You don't hear it often during the series, and that was intentional. Just like in real military life, soldiers are usually called by their rank or last name. This approach helped make the show's military setting feel more authentic, while still keeping things light and funny. James Kinchloe, known to fans as Kinch, had a special relationship with Colonel Hogan. He often called him Skipper, a nickname that stood out from the usual formality of military life. That little term of endearment said a lot without needing much explanation. It showed a relationship built on deep trust, respect, and maybe even brotherhood. In the high-stress environment of a prison camp, where loyalty meant everything, small details like this nickname helped show just how tight-knit and dependable the group really was. Bernard Fox, a talented British actor, actually played two different characters on the show. He portrayed both the hilariously hopeless Colonel Crittenden and Captain Rodney. Despite being the same actor, Fox made each character feel completely unique through different accents, body language, and comedic timing. Whether this was done for budget reasons or just as a fun challenge, it highlighted just how skilled and versatile the cast truly was. Coming up with the right advertising slogan for the show wasn't easy. They needed something bold, funny, and memorable to capture the spirit of Hogan's Heroes. In a twist of fate, the winning line came as a joke. Comedian Stan Freberg jokingly said, "If you like World War II, you'll love Hogan's Heroes." At first, the creators rejected this idea because it seemed too edgy, but eventually, they realized it was a perfect mix of bold and clever. That accidental tagline became a standout piece of marketing that told viewers exactly what kind of humor to expect, and it worked brilliantly. The cast of Hogan's Heroes were incredibly talented beyond just their acting abilities. Bob Crane wasn't just a great actor. He was also an excellent drummer. Long before his television fame, Crane had made a name for himself as a skilled musician. Every now and then, the show would include scenes where Hogan got to show off those drumming skills, giving longtime fans a fun surprise, and another way the show blurred the lines between character and performer. Richard Dawson, who played the cheeky Corporal Newkirk, had a successful singing career in the UK before he became famous on television. With a warm voice and natural stage presence, Dawson had already made a name for himself in music before his acting career took off. His musical background added another layer to his performance and reminded fans just how much depth and range the show's cast really had. The musical talents didn't stop there. Howard Kane, who played Major Hochstetter, was an award-winning banjo player. Robert Clary, Larry Hovis, and Ivan Dixon were all singers. Many of them got to showcase their musical abilities on the show's official album, which became a fan favorite. It's incredible to think that this comedy show was packed with so many multi-talented performers. Here's something that might shock you about how the show was received in different countries. Hogan's Heroes debuted in the United States in 1965, but it didn't reach German audiences until 1992. That's nearly 30 years later. The delay wasn't just about timing. It was about making major changes to make the show acceptable for German viewers. First, they had to completely change the title. The original German name was Stacheldraht und Fersengeld, which means barbed wire and heels. Eventually, it was changed to Ein Käfig voller Helden, or A Cage Full of Heroes, which better reflected the tone of the series. At first, the show struggled in Germany. The translation was awkward, the lip-syncing didn't match up properly, and a lot of the humor got lost in translation. So the German broadcasters started making changes to better suit their audiences. Characters like Klink were given even sillier lines, and they gave him a mysterious off-screen girlfriend named Kalink, someone viewers only heard about but never saw. All references to Heil Hitler were replaced with Heil Krauter, which loosely translates to Hail Herbs. Even the storylines were softened for German audiences. In the American version, the heroes might destroy a munitions factory. In the German version, it became a toilet paper factory instead. In another episode, a bombing raid on Hamburg was reimagined as the Royal Air Force dropping candy, as a propaganda stunt rather than real bombs. These quirky changes helped the show finally win over German viewers. It may have taken decades, but eventually, audiences across the Atlantic got to enjoy the comedy of Stalag 13 too. The show was filmed in two main locations, though it was supposed to take place in Germany. All the indoor scenes were shot at Desilu Studios, which later became Paramount Studios during the fourth season. For the last two seasons, production moved to Cinema General Studios. The outdoor scenes were filmed around the Los Angeles area. Here's something interesting. Even though it was filmed in sunny Southern California, every single episode was meant to look like it took place during winter. In the early seasons, they used salt to make fake snow, but eventually switched to white paint to create the winter atmosphere. The set was so well built that it was reused in several other productions over the years, including some much more serious war films. Unfortunately, the original set was eventually destroyed during the filming of another movie in 1975. The cleared lot later became the set for different films, but by 1976, it had been completely bulldozed and turned into an industrial park. It's sad to think that this piece of television history no longer exists. Some of the vehicles used on the show were incredibly rare and valuable. General Burkhalter's car wasn't just a prop. It was a genuine Mercedes-Benz that was one of only 57 ever built in that particular black and gray style. After World War II, only 3 of these cars were still around. One ended up with the Spanish royal family, another was converted into a fire truck, and the third was used on Hogan's Heroes. Talk about using a piece of history as a television prop. The show ran for 168 episodes between 1965 and 1971, making it the longest-running World War II comedy of its time. For most of its run, it enjoyed widespread popularity. Cast member Robert Clary once told an interviewer, "They loved it. It was amazing. I am still called LeBeau, even decades after the show ended." But by its final season, the show faced some serious challenges. One of the biggest reasons it was canceled was something called the Rural Purge. Television advertisers wanted fewer shows set in rural or small-town locations and pushed for more urban-centered content to appeal to city audiences who had more spending power. At the same time, the Vietnam War was getting worse, and viewers were growing less interested in watching a lighthearted take on war, even a historical one. Despite these challenges, Hogan's Heroes earned significant recognition during its run. It was nominated for 12 Emmy Awards over the years, including nominations for Outstanding Comedy Series in 1966, 1967, and 1968. Bob Crane was nominated twice for his leading performance, and several other cast and crew members received nominations for their work. The series only won 2 Emmy Awards, but they were both very special. Werner Klemper won for his iconic portrayal of Colonel Klink in both 1968 and 1969. These wins recognized not just his comedic talent, but also the skill it took to make such a potentially offensive character both funny and harmless. In 1967, the show received one of the earliest NAACP Image Awards, shared with only 6 other shows, including I Spy, Star Trek, and Mission Impossible. This honor was given for their contribution to improving the representation of African Americans on television, specifically recognizing Ivan Dixon's dignified portrayal of Sergeant Kinchloe. Later, Hogan's Heroes was ranked number 100 in TV Guide and TV Land's list of the top 100 most unexpected moments in TV history. They describe it as an unlikely POW camp comedy, and that really captures what made the show so special. The premise was so ridiculous and daring that no one expected it to work, but somehow it did. The show didn't just use its own actors repeatedly, it also borrowed talent from other series, especially other war-themed shows. William Christopher, who was famous for playing Father Mulcahy on MASH, appeared on Hogan's Heroes as a prisoner of war, a German soldier, and even a British pilot in different episodes. Harold J. Stone played both an American agent and a German general on the show. The list of guest stars was long and sometimes unexpected. Henry Corden, who was the voice of Fred Flintstone in the famous cartoon, played 5 different characters across 5 different episodes of Hogan's Heroes. This kind of creative casting added to the show's playful, anything-goes atmosphere. The main cast had incredible chemistry both on and off-screen. They genuinely enjoyed each other's company, and it showed not just in the final product, but in the way they liked to joke around and keep things light during filming. This real friendship translated into the believable camaraderie we saw between their characters. Many of the main actors even worked together again after the show ended. They reunited for the 1968 comedy film The Wicked Dreams of Paula Schultz. Werner Klemper and John Banner had actually worked together before Hogan's Heroes 2, appearing together in a 1955 episode of Alfred Hitchcock Presents. Now, let's talk about something that shows just how much attention to detail the show really didn't have when it came to consistency. The show couldn't even decide what to call the prison camp. In the first season, it switches back and forth between Stalag 13 and Camp 13, as if the writers couldn't make up their minds. Sergeant Schultz constantly announces a serial number throughout the series, but it changes in nearly every episode. It's like the character couldn't remember his own identification number. And then there's Carter's knowledge and abilities, which seem to change depending on what the plot needs. In one episode called The Scientist, Carter insists he can't teach LeBeau about chemistry because he just runs a drugstore back home. But in an earlier episode called German Bridge is Falling Down, he confidently creates chlorine gas using household chemicals. Later, in Hogan Springs, he's mixing complex mineral water formulas like a professional chemist. Even more confusing, one episode features a periodic table with all 103 known elements, but only 92 have been discovered by the 1940s when the show was supposed to take place. These inconsistencies might seem like problems, but they actually add to the show's charm. Hogan's Heroes was never trying to be a serious historical drama. It was a comedy that happened to use World War II as its setting, and these little continuity errors remind us not to take it too seriously. The show's success came from an incredible cast, clever writing, and the bold decision to find humor in one of history's darkest periods. By making the Nazis into bumbling fools while showing the Allied prisoners as clever heroes, the show found a way to address serious themes through comedy. The fact that many of the actors playing Nazis were real-life victims of Nazi persecution added layers of meaning that most viewers never realized were there. What makes Hogan's Heroes truly special is how it managed to be both entertaining and meaningful at the same time. On the surface, it was just a silly comedy about prisoners outsmarting their captors. But underneath, it was a story about courage, friendship, and the triumph of good over evil. The real-life experiences of actors like Robert Clary and Leon Skin gave the show a depth and authenticity that no amount of research or method acting could have provided. The show also broke new ground in television representation. At a time when African-American actors were often limited to stereotypical roles, Ivan Dixon's portrayal of Sergeant Kinchlow showed a black character as intelligent, capable, and essential to the team's success. This was revolutionary for 1960s television and helped pave the way for better representation in future shows. Today, more than 50 years after it first aired, Hogan's Heroes remains a beloved classic that continues to entertain new generations of viewers. The secrets we revealed today show just how much thought, talent, and real-life experience went into creating what seemed like just a simple comedy show. From the Jewish actors who turned their persecutors into objects of ridicule, to the Holocaust survivor who found the courage to laugh at his darkest memories, to the creative team who transformed a rejected concept into television gold, Hogan's Heroes is proof that sometimes the most unlikely ideas can create the most lasting impact. These incredible secrets show us that there was so much more happening behind the scenes than anyone could have imagined. The next time you watch an episode of Hogan's Heroes, you'll see it with completely different eyes, knowing the real stories of courage, survival, and triumph that made it possible. What do you think about these amazing secrets? Were you shocked by any of these revelations? Let us know in the comments below what surprised you the most. If you enjoyed learning these incredible behind-the-scenes stories, make sure to give this video a thumbs up and share it with your friends and family. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell so you never miss our latest videos revealing the secrets behind your favorite classic TV shows and movies. Trust me, we have so many more incredible stories to share with you, and you won't want to miss a single one.